So I'll talk a little bit about like our adoption path so far. Um, the earliest adoption of Obol has been at-home validators. They're the first ones to have put it on mainnet. We put our first ones, on mainnet between core team members, all running at home. And now, kind of the adoption evolution is now getting into your hosted person and your liquid staking pool. Liquid staking pools were kind of the earliest adopters of the idea and supporters of it being in their roadmap. So I'll start with the at-home validator, which is quite interesting. So today, the at-home validator, for example, like Oisin runs one out of his house, and like we travel a lot today for like purposes of Obol. And it's like kind of chronically offline. It's kind of this thing that you have to worry about, and you can't really have peace of mind for being an at-home validator today, which is something that like DVT can unlock for you, right? You can have your at-home machine. You can run backups inside of the cloud in a non-slashable way, so that you can ensure you can kind of live your normal life. The other side of the at-home validator is the persona type of, I don't have 32 ETH, but I trust myself to run my own machine. And there's actually like quite a lot of those people. And they can use Obol to come together to like create their own shared validator, because they may not be interested in taking on the risk of a pool. And, they may not need a liquid stake token, but they don't have 32 ETH. And that's kind of this squad staking concept, which we've seen honestly take off quite a bit in the at-home validator category, which is, a whole group of people who's like, some of my ETH is in a pool. The rest of it, I just want to run myself, but I don't have a full validator's worth, which has been quite interesting. So yeah, it's peace of mind. But then that second user group is actually where we think most of the tail end adoption for DVT will be in like 10 to 15 years, is like enabling just groups of people to get together who run their own machines and giving each other fault tolerance in like a human to human manner. So yeah, a lot of early adoption there, but the middle adoption of DVT won't be there, in my opinion. They're like the early enthusiasts. They're the ones that help set us up. Our primary duty is to figure out how to give the at-home validator more tools to get more of them online. And now we're bridging more into the hosted and like liquid staking pool category. So now I'll get into those two different types of users and, why it's beneficial for them. For your liquid staking pool, it is actually the most innovative use case of DVT today, because most of the pools are using it for its Byzantine properties, which is quite cool. So the example I like to give is, let's just, use a hypothetical liquid staking pool. Today, there's 10 validators inside of this liquid staking pool. All of them are supplying their own, keys to the system, keys that they create, keys that they manage, and keys that they run on their machines, again, in a very monolithic environment. And the reality is that like in this liquid, like this hypothetical liquid staking pool, each of those validators would have like a certain amount of stake that they're responsible for. And that person can actually self-slash. They can be, they can sabotage, they can act malicious. They can't take the funds, right? But they can shut the machines off, and they can like bring penalty to the greater pool, if you will, when most of these pools use social economics. So it does mean that like it could take, it'll hurt every single participant in the pool if one of these validators defects. And it doesn't even need to be malicious, right? It could also be a bad day at the office where like, all your servers crash and everything goes down, or it could even be catastrophic, right? Like you have a rogue employee who steals the keys, and, there's a variety of different things that can happen inside of that construct. So what DVT enables is that group of 10 people can now just share one validator, which like creates this whole new defect game theory between the different operators in that cluster. It gives fault tolerance, and it makes it essentially, I hate to use the word impossible, but it makes it very, very difficult for any one validator in that group to do anything malicious or defective to that pool. So that, again, like its availability in slashing protection reasons and utilizing it for the fact that there's a consensus mechanism and it prevents Byzantine behavior. So it's one of its true, core primitives. The other reasons that they're using it is not only for that, but they're using it as well to decentralize their validator set. So if you're going to build a liquid staking pool that wants to be very decentralized, then you're going to have to invite call it middle to lower to sub-tier validators to like decentralize the validator set over time. And you need to do so in a way that protects the pool, especially if it's an existing pool. And most of the pools today, like migrating to DVT, are existing pools, and there's lots of money inside of all of them, right? So if you are going to let new validators in, you need to let them enter the pool in a manner that doesn't hurt the pool. And DVT is a great way to do that, because you can just build some shared validators. You can partner, 3 highly proficient people with 1 newcomer, and then, you have some fault tolerance. There's some give there if they make an error without really harming the pool. So yeah, the decentralization of the validator set is also a very interesting one for pools, and the use of it for its Byzantine properties. Your hosted service provider is actually someone that we thought would come later in the adoption cycle. However, they've come in quite quickly. And it's a factor to do with the centralized staking product, or the hosted product. It was the first product in the industry. It's been competitive for a number of years now. It's like entering its fairly normal maturation cycle of compressed margins and increased costs. And now those products need to mature themselves in a way where they decrease their costs, but they improve their security. As being a centralized provider requires SOC 2, SOC 1 compliance. These things help to kind of institutionalize yourself. And most of these people have to offer some type of off-chain insurance mechanism, which is quite costly to do, or you just have to be pretty well, bankrolled. So for these users, their maturation and growth is meeting DVT kind of in the middle. And they're experimenting with it to help scale their operations in a way where they can decrease the amount of machines they need for a certain amount of ETH, while also increasing the security profile of that setup. We've seen a lot of interesting things recently in the insurance and reinsurance topic around DVT. Offering staking insurance, it has been difficult historically because, the definition of a bad day at the office is losing all your Ether potentially. But that was just at the beginning. And now we're, as a community, DVT being one of those technologies, building things that alleviate a worst case scenario of losing all your ETH. So insurance providers have been interested in kind of including DVT into their criteria of providing insurance, because it gives them more assurance that you can't lose all of it. It's not an absolute loss situation. So, no insurer is going to insure something that's an absolute loss situation. And technologies like DVT have now come in and helped alleviate that. So yeah, those are the 3 core user groups. I think the 4th one I'll mention is kind of DeFi, and how DeFi has thought about using DVT. So in most DeFi projects today, you're taking an asset and you're wrapping it, or you're taking a collection of assets and you're pooling them together, and you may produce a stable coin from it, right? Or you may produce other streams of yield or income off of a collection of tokens. The collection of tokens that people are using today are LST tokens, liquid stake tokens, and they're doing a variety of different things with them. Those products, since there's a product built on top of it, it's better for those products if those liquid stake tokens are as de-risked as possible. And now people are looking at what is their risk criteria. And mostly they haven't been looked at. The only risk criteria that an LST token has been looked at to date is liquidity, because that was the biggest risk, right? How liquid is this thing? What does that look like? But now it's more or less okay, what are the potential penalization properties of these LSTs? And under the hood, what types of security protocols and parameters are they using for it? So now we've seen DeFi, who has its own interpretation of risk, honestly, probably a more mature interpretation of risk than the validating community. And now DVT's kind of come into their spectrum over the past, call it month or two, which has been very interesting for them to want to include it in their ecosystem and to learn more about it.